Go. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Mental Health and Healing. And today, as always, I'm excited to bring you the topic of today. Today's topic is holistic healing for mental health. Many times people believe that we have to just stay on one stream of understanding in order to heal. Well, today, for many of you, I'm probably going to just take this way left, and that's okay. Because you're going to learn something that is maybe new to you. And then to some of you, this is probably going to be absolutely amazing, and it's going to touch home and hit home for you. I am Dr. Jackson. I am the person who is always trying to fill your healing box with new tools to help you heal from trauma. Today, I have with me Miss Cheri Smith, and she is the CBD Yoga Teacher. As always, as we're going along in this broadcast, please feel free to ask questions because we will answer those questions as we carry along through this conversation. Okay? Okay. So I am going to hand it over to our CBD yoga teacher so that she can introduce herself and tell you a bit about herself. Hi, Cheri. Welcome.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be able to reach, people through this streaming platform and really just dive in and talk about holistic healing options for mental health. A little bit about my background first is, where do you start? So basically, I didn't just stumble into holistic healing for mental health. It was definitely through my own struggles and journeys. And I originally started off as a kid. I was seeing a sleep therapist by the age of 10. And they started me on antidepressants and anxiety medication at 16. And this was from physical and sexual trauma as a child. And so, by 10, sleep therapist, 16, they were trying, the Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, and I'm 44 now. So my journey really started as a child. And let's see, medication, boy, big journey with medication. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I was off of all the medication, and I basically just started kind of achieving as a drug. I don't know if that makes sense, but to outrun the shame and the trauma of my childhood, I started overachieving. And for me, that was a way of kind of like putting on this armor and protecting myself so I wouldn't get hurt again. And then I just started competing in the corporate world. And I built a really successful career, graduated college with honors, built a successful career. And my life was really just about checking off boxes, right? And kind of chasing this elusive version of success that was presented to me that I thought was success. And once I started checking off those boxes and as an adult and kind of reaching that pinnacle of my career, family, children, I guess you can call it a midlife crisis. I feel like it was a midlife crisis. It was a spiritual awakening, but it was also a physical breakdown at the same time. I started getting like chronically ill, chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety was just at an all-time high. And I basically started not functioning and was going into panic attacks in public. When I would walk out to my car, even just to leave the house, I started going into a fight or flight. And I was in adrenaline, like a survival mode every single day. And this was just, working, doing the normal routine. I was in this adrenaline-induced survival mode. And basically, you can only run on adrenaline so long until you burn out. So I hit a wall. I ended up being diagnosed, and this was a few years back, diagnosed with several autoimmune diseases. At that time, I resisted depression and medication because I had already, done all that and wanted to be done. But at that time, I was in such a hole, and just having all these medical diagnoses coming on. Mentally, I was struggling just to even deal with all the diagnoses, everything I was going through, and got to a point of even having thoughts of self-harm. So in that moment, I basically dragged myself down to the nearest yoga studio because I had started yoga about 20 years prior. And so I had that little seed of yoga in me. I knew it was a healthy option. And so basically at my lowest low, physically, mentally, spiritually, I like to say I was soul sick, and that soul sickness manifested into those autoimmune diseases. And I do believe that any emotional trauma that is not processed will over time manifest into physical disease. So that was what was happening in me. I didn't realize it at the time, but I got myself down to the local yoga studio. And when I first went for my first class, I couldn't even make it through the whole first class. I walked in the door, I couldn't look at anyone, I couldn't talk to anyone. I would have broke down crying. I was just, at that time, I felt broken. And I just knew I needed to make it to my yoga mat. So I got to the yoga mat, couldn't even get through a whole 1 hour class, but I kept coming back, and I would just sit and lay there and just be happy that I was, out of the house and somewhere healthy. And so I kept going back to yoga. And then one day, the yoga teacher said that she was offering Reiki healing after the yoga. And if I wanted to stay for that, it was optional. And so at this time, you have to understand, I was going rounds and rounds with doctors, getting different blood work. I had everything going straight through me for almost 30 days. So I was losing weight. I was losing muscle mass, doing all this blood work. No one can figure out what was going on. And I was offered a Reiki after the yoga, and I stayed. And she literally just held her hands and kind of scanned my body, came to right here, and she said, your solar plexus is on fire. And she just held her hands there for a while. And then she gave me some tips, just a few things to do at home for myself. And I went home and did those things. Within 24 hours, my stomach reset. I started holding food and water. And literally what the doctors couldn't figure out in over a month, the Reiki reset within 24 hours. So at that point, that's where my relationship with healing, holistic healing began. And then my relationship with Reiki began. Prior to that, it was very black and white, very mathematical. I had to see something to believe it. I didn't really see anything, bigger or outside of myself at that time either. And so the Reiki came in and literally changed my life. It started the healing process physically, mentally, spiritually, and it gave me the space to basically start to reach for healthier options. So that was the trigger. The Reiki was the trigger for me. And I was able to slowly start doing more healthy options. So from that point forward, I cut out alcohol. I'm sure that had a lot to do with the whole digestion issue. And then full disclosure, I started drinking at lunch, and I was drinking one of the big bottles of wine every day to numb. And that was numbing everything. So I call it the easy button. When we hit the easy button, when we're hurting inside and we hit the easy button is alcohol, pills, overeating, oversexing, overshopping. Those are things we do to numb what's going on. And when we do that and we numb, we can't selectively just numb the pain or the trauma. So I was numbing all of the joy, all of the happiness, and it hit me. This was about 4 years back. I bought a new car, not brand new, but new to me. And it was, like a big moment in my life to be able to buy a newer car and pick the color and pick that kind of stuff. And I remember doing it, and everyone around me was so happy and so excited. And I didn't feel that. And I just had this like disassociation almost. And I wasn't experience or feel my own joy or happiness. I was watching it being reflected in friends and family around me. And that was kind of like one of the bricks on the wall that finally awakened me. But so just learning, I mean, I was numbing everything, numbing the joy of my children. I mean, numbing everything. And so I started learning healthier options. The yoga really helps move anxiety through your body. And again, I've struggled with anxiety.
So you've actually, you're hitting some actually good points for some of our, some of the folks in our audience. And they're like, I love the easy button, overeating. And I really don't believe people realize that a lot of those things are tied to the trauma that you've experienced, right?
Yes.
And we turn those into coping mechanisms that end up being extremely unhealthy for us one way or another, right? So people be like, oh yeah, you know, they want to talk about people who use or people who drink, and since those a lot of things are taboo, if you do too much of it, a lot of people don't look at overstressing or stress eating or any of things on the same level, right? Even though the outcome can be quite drastic in either direction. So you know, you hit some things there.
Yeah. And then what happens is when we make the unhealthy option, it only builds up the shame.
Yes.
Whether we recognize it or not, it's still subconsciously building up shame, which is further blocking ourselves from living healthy. And
because you won't do it out loud. And if you won't do it out loud, then you can't get help, right? So there's that balance.
Yeah.
Okay. So
so that's kind of how I ended up here. Do you want me to take it? I can kind of close the gap from where I discovered Reiki and then became the CBD yoga teacher.
You can do whatever you want. This is a conversation. Carry on.
Okay. So what happened was I ended up in the process of getting diagnosed with the multiple autoimmune diseases. So literally within 24 hours, I was diagnosed with 3 autoimmune diseases and fired from my corporate job that I had basically worked my whole life for. It was my identity. It was everything. It provided for my family. I was being honest with my manager and was letting her know, yeah, I'm getting diagnosed, blah, blah, blah. And then that afternoon, I got a call from HR. But here's the beauty. Everything happens for a reason. And I know it's cliche to say when one door closes, another window opens. This was the biggest blessing in disguise, because what I did was, first of all, they offered me a settlement, right? It's illegal I was on disability.
I was
so illegal to do that.
Thing. Oh my goodness, that is so illegal.
So I negotiated this settlement twice of what they offered. Then I took that money and I put myself through yoga teacher training. And then I started working as a yoga teacher. I started a business called Self-Care for Life. And I was making self-care kits and just trying to share the awareness of self-care, of really slowing down and understanding that you do have to take care of yourself. It's such a crazy concept.
What is that? Right?
I grew up with that whole thing. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So it was like a badge of honor to be busy and to always be like, go, 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 go. And it was shameful to take a nap or to do anything for yourself. It was, especially as a mom.
Because then people say you were lazy. You're not doing what you need to do. You're a wife. You're a mom. You should be working. You should be cleaning. You should be making sure your children are taken care of. Listen, my soapbox is self-care. How about that? Yeah, but yes.
So that's where it started. And I was looking for CBD bath bombs to put in these self-care boxes. And so I was the boxes were going pretty well, but I was like, oh, I want some CBD bath bomb. And as I was doing the research, Congress passed the Farm Bill in December 2018.
Nice, yes.
And so literally so then I was like, ooh, bath bombs. Oh, no, let's do all things CBD. And so it pretty much blossomed. I mean, that December 2018, it was legalized. I started the CBD Yoga Teacher January 1st.
Listen, you're quick and smart.
oh, it just boom, it hit so powerful. It was like,
and it's amazing that you decided, right? It's amazing that you decided to put that in there though, because then we have to look at, I mean, that was a bold move, especially since there's a stigma with CBD, anything related to it, right?
yeah, yeah. So first trying to even be like heard in building a business and creating that momentum around, you know, a new business and everything. And then coming out brand new, CBD was just legalized. But the beauty of this was what I went to college for and what I was working in prior was I was a corporate trainer.
Okay.
And I've always loved training, educating, sharing information. So I knew it would be an uphill battle getting over the hurdle of the stigma,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew I had what it took to do the education piece of it.
Okay.
So I didn't take it on as, oh, I'm just going to sell CBD. I took it on as really as I'm going to take the time to educate and truly come from a healing perspective. So everything I've done around CBD has always been around education. And so right now, I mean, I really want to just address and dive right into the stigma of CBD.
Absolutely. Go for it.
So I've been literally, when I first started as a CBD yoga teacher, I was at a family event and I had, you know, one of the family members come up. He's all, oh, so you're doing that pot thing, huh?
Yeah, sure, sir. The pot thing. Yes. Yes. That's what I'm doing.
So, yeah, I got a lot of that, right? And so CBD is not pot. And
Let's start there.
it just fueled my fire to educate. So let's go ahead and just break that down right now. So if you look at cannabis as an umbrella, under cannabis as a species, we've got the genuses of the marijuana plant and then the hemp plant. Most of us are familiar with the marijuana plant, which has THC, psychoactive ingredient, gives us, you know, the munchies, that type of thing, right? So now under the same umbrella is the hemp plant. And I like to call the hemp plant the non-psychoactive cousin of marijuana. So it still grows and looks very much like the same plant, but it's non-psychoactive, which means you're not getting a head change or a head high. You're only getting all the cannabinoids, which are basically, that's the holistic healing property of the plant. Mm-hmm. So you're getting all the different kind of cannabinoids, which there's actually excellent research now that has shown cannabinoids help with everything from inflammation covers a host of different diseases, but anything related to inflammation, anything from like the heart, lungs, and yes, I'm even going to say it, there's tons of research happening right now that is showing that CBD is having a positive effect on prevention of COVID disease in the lungs, the problems with the lungs.
I'm going there. She said, I'm going there right now. Okay, let's go.
Seriously.
Yes.
Prevention and treatment of the inflammation in the lungs of COVID patients. So I encourage you guys to do your own research. Absolutely. But there's tons of data coming out that because, and they'll get into all the scientific little, you know, wording, but basically the CBD is an anti-inflammatory and is able to take whatever inflammation is happening in your lung. It's able to calm and soothe that inflammation. So let's see, why don't I just go ahead and go into like the healing benefits of CBD?
Yeah, you know, absolutely. You can go into the healing benefits of it, but let's just go ahead and talk about the fact that the everyday issues that people have as well, such as headache, migraines, and anxiety, all of those things that it's necessarily touching and making better. And to just absolutely be honest, when I have a migraine, CBD is my best friend, short of sleeping all day long. Yes.
Yeah.
It is. And because it makes you feel better. And I'm not polluting my body with, I don't know, pharmaceuticals, over-the-counter issues. But, you know, again, I digress. There you go. Go.
So I'll explain just a little bit. I won't get into too much of the science, but I'll explain a little bit of how it even works. and then maybe even share how I use it specifically to transition myself off of depression and anxiety medication.
Oh, that would be good to know.
Okay. So first, I mentioned the cannabinoids. So almost even going back to holistic healing, right? So holistic healing, anything holistic is considered of nature, of the earth. So it would be basically taking a plant like CBD and using the extract of a plant versus a pharmaceutical, which would be considered like a chemical or man-made. So holistic healing are basically options for healing that would include anything non-invasive in your body. I don't know. How do I explain the holistic part of this?
I don't know. Holistic is non-invasive. When I think of holistic, I think of like we're talking about every fiber of our being. We're not just talking about the physical aspects. We're talking about the mental aspects, the spiritual aspects, the just every makeup of the human being, right?
Yeah. So first, it's all encompassing.
All encompassing of the human existence.
And then it's definitely more of a natural approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the remedies would be considered, derived of nature, or just not having chemicals, or what do we say, intrusive? Yeah. So that's why CBD is so popular, is because it's literally extracted from a plant. And as long as you get a product that's extracted with the right process, because there are, that's why CBD is getting such a bad rap. So the processing of CBD is very important. You've got to go with a reputable company. You want to look for CO2 extraction, because they're using CO2 and not chemicals. So look for CO2 extracted CBD. You want to look for organic if possible. And then you also want to look for independently tested lab papers. So just a couple things you want to look for. And then, so the cannabinoids in the CBD, basically our bodies, we are born with an endocannabinoid system. All mammals are born with an endocannabinoid system. Literally, like whales, llamas, cats, dogs, we all have these receptors in our bodies ready to receive the cannabinoid medicine. And if you think about that, it's very powerful, because we're not born with Tylenol systems, Zoloft, Paxil. We're not born with systems ready to receive man-made pharmaceuticals, but we are born with an endocannabinoid system. So we were very much intended to be using this medicine from nature. And I don't know if I want to go, unless somebody asks me about CBD1 and CBD2 receptors, I won't get into it.
Okay.
But just know that we have different types of receptors in our body, throughout our entire body. And these receptors, when the CBD comes in, it does a couple things. It literally gets involved with the pain receptors to where it interferes, and you will not feel the pain, right? Like a typical Advil or over-the-counter pain reliever. But CBD goes beyond just masking the pain, because it works at a cellular level to bring your cells to homeostasis, which means you're getting the pain relief, but CBD is going into the individual little cells, and there's these things called mitochondria, which are like the lungs of the cell. I don't want to get too geeky, stop me. But
no, it's okay. I'm just laughing because I really love this. You teach this, and your passion for it shows, which really is and that's amazing. Go ahead, carry on. I'm sorry.
So you're not just getting the pain relief. The CBD works at a cellular level to repair the cells, and then it also works to bring your body to homeostasis. Meaning, if there's anything cellular, so you have cells in your body that turn over, and think about cancer is when a cell starts to mutate and it doesn't replicate properly. So any type of disease in our body first starts with a cell that says, I'm not going to follow orders. I'm going to kind of get mischievous and do something different. So CBD comes in and actually balances that cell and works to homeostasis, which basically just brings everything in your body to an even normal functioning state.
Mm-hmm.
So CBD, even if you don't have any of the mental or physical symptoms, CBD is still good for a daily supplement
Mm-hmm.
because strengthening basically all of your neuroconnectors, connective tissue. It's just strengthening and building all of the cells and affecting the cellular turnover of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great if you're perfectly healthy, but this is about mental health. So when I first started CBD, I was on both a daily depression medication.
Mm-hmm.
I had a anxiety medication, Klonopin, which is pretty heavy duty.
It's real heavy.
So I was on that when I was having the thoughts of self-harm, and I was in the very deepest hole.
Mm-hmm.
I was on that daily. I was able to start working myself off of that, was on a daily depression medication, and then I only took that Klonopin in an anxiety event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's where I was when I started with CBD. When I started with CBD, I knew that I wanted to get off the pharmaceutical, all of those side effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I just wanted to be on CBD long term. So what I did is I started taking I took the depression medication and I halved them.
Mm-hmm.
I halved the dose of CBD. So I was taking half my depression medication, half of a dose of CBD.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a couple of weeks. And then I switched to full dose, of the CBD. And then basically just slowly weaned myself off of the depression medication.
Mm-hmm.
As you lower the whatever pharmaceutical, then I was upping the CBD to where I got to a normal dose of CBD and then off the depression medication.
Got it. Okay.
For me, I didn't experience any side effects or any kickbacks,
Mm-hmm.
any lashback. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't touched the Klonopin since I started the CBD,
That's
which is beautiful. That's a beautiful feeling.
So how long has that been?
2.5 years. Over 2.5 years.
That's really good.
Yeah. So
that's absolutely amazing.
And then from there, so I want to show the dropper, because there's different forms of CBD. For long-term depression or anxiety management,
You use the tincture?
Well, so the tincture, technically a tincture has alcohol mixed in as a preservative.
Uh-huh.
This is considered a dropper, so it's just CBD and coconut oil, nothing else. The tinctures have the alcohol, which to me, I don't like that flavor.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like it's as clean and pure. So this, I dropped.
I just wanted to lean in really close just now.
So how are we doing on time? So the droppers, I just wanted to see how we're doing on time.
We're good. Just don't worry about time. Just go ahead.
Okay. Because I do want to just share a couple things. If you're looking for CBD, most people are getting ripped off because they're buying hemp oil, which is not CBD. So if I can do like a public service announcement.
Please. We got to get it right. If we're here trying to help people, we have to get it right.
It's all about healing and not wasting money on stuff that doesn't work. So first and foremost, do not buy CBD on Amazon. Amazon cannot sell true CBD. If you go to Amazon and search for CBD, you're going to see hemp oil. Hemp oil is derived from the seed of the hemp plant, has no CBD. It has omega-3s and fatty acids for your skin, your hair, your nails, but it's like a vitamin. So hemp oil is not CBD. It will not work for anxiety, depression, or pain. There are tons of people. You'll even see there's an infomercial, Hempvana, selling CBD, and they show people golfing. Oh, it's all BS. There is no pain management in hemp oil. So when you're looking at products, I don't even know how that's legal. When you're looking at products, make sure it says CBD, not just hemp oil. CBD is extracted from the stem and the flower of the plant. That's where the healing medicine is.
Now, will they do some CBD with hemp oil? Like they'll use hemp oil as a carrier oil, that coconut oil is as a carrier oil, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So coconut oil is the highest level carrier oil, I guess, if you want to call it, an MCT oil, so a multi-chain triglyceride coconut oil, and CBD are the only 2 ingredients that should ever be in your dropper.
Oh.
If you're okay with chemical sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, if you're personally okay with that, that's your personal choice.
Right.
But you really just need CBD and coconut oil. The coconut oil, well, let me back up. CBD, unlike THC, is an appetite suppressant.
Yes, it is.
So that's a beautiful thing. The coconut oil is also an appetite suppressant.
Yes, it is.
It has antimicrobial, antibacterial. It has its own healing properties. In fact, before I took CBD,
I'm sorry. Coconut oil. Yes, ma'am.
So now I get my coconut oil with CBD. So coconut oil, especially an MCT, multi-chain triglyceride, the highest quality that you can get, and you don't even have to spend very much money on it.
Do you mind saying the brand? Because some people may want to know. I can type it in the comments.
Yeah. So they actually go, I carry 2 different brands. My website is thecbdyogateacher.com.
Oh, she pushing me there early. Hold on, y'all. Here. We're going to put it up here now, and then we're going to put it up here again in the end. Let me see.
I just want to I carry more than one brand because I carry an isolate, but this is a beautiful segue. I carry a CBD isolate, and I carry a full spectrum. And it's very important to know the difference. Because
can you explain the difference between that and a full spectrum?
You can lose your job over it. So
yes, you can. No difference. Especially if they test you. Stay away from. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll type this in really quickly.
So the 2 main forms of CBD are the isolate. The isolate is just like it sounds. They isolate the CBD compound out of all the other cannabinoids, and you're getting the purest, cleanest form of just CBD. And I say CBD because there's other cannabinoids like CBN, CBG, CBA, different cannabinoids that will do different things in your body. So CBD is the one that helps anxiety, pain, anti-inflammation, depression, CBD isolate. So the isolate is the one you want if you get drug tested for THC. Because what happens, let me grab the full spectrum.
Listen, y'all, listen.
The full spectrum.
Hey, Cheri, hold on just a moment. You said it's the CBD Yoga Teacher.
The CBDYogaTeacher.com.
Okay, got it.
So full spectrum is pretty intuitive too. It's the full spectrum of cannabinoids. So that's where you're getting all the different cannabinoids, a little bit more trace of the THC. And they do that because when you get the spectrum of the cannabinoids, there's something called a synergistic effect or an entourage effect, where they kind of work and blend together and can help be a little bit more effective. So full spectrum is recommended only if you're not tested for THC. Full spectrum is most beneficial if you have deep body pain. So I work with people, chronic pain, neck surgery, back surgery, if you've got metal in your body, stuff like that. As long as you're not tested through your work for THC, full spectrum is going to be the best choice. Now, for mental health, anxiety, depression, even pain, the isolate works just fine, and you don't have to put yourself at risk for the THC drug test. Both of them are low enough, they're below the government level of THC, you're not going to feel a head high. So if you're looking for a head change, you're not going to get it. You just feel a relief of your symptoms. So literally,
the full spectrum can also help you sleep a little bit better as well, right?
Yeah. I actually have specific stuff for sleep, but I'm due for my evening dose.
And it's sublingual?
Sublingual. So I show you, I just measure out right there on the dropper. I'm going to drop it below my tongue because that's a high bioavailability area in your body. It's going to absorb really well. You're going to get the most out of it. And I'm going to hold it for just a couple seconds. and just kind of absorbs and mixes in with your own stuff.
With your own saliva, and then there you go about your day. So
And within about 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to feel just the anxiety. So the spinning thoughts, the racing head, the heart, that'll start to dissipate. You just notice like you can just breathe a little easier.
It's like I believe it's a calm that you really can't actually explain, and then it's sudden actually, and you're just like, oh, I don't feel like the world is on fire right now.
Yes.
You're like, oh, okay. And then, and the sad part is, at first, I think you're just worried because you're not worried. And that's a whole nother,
yes,
that's a whole nother story in itself, right?
I have 40 years of that little, like, something's not right. And then to release that, I was like, whoa,
any day now. Cause that's not happening. The world is clearly ending. And it's not.
But you'll get used to living without the monkey on your back, right?
You absolutely do. You get used to being able to wake up in the morning and actually have had a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Not waking up, not worried, not feeling like, not having panic attacks, not feeling like, something's happening, not waiting for the other shoe to drop, not looking at any of that other stuff and going on about your day. And to be quite honest, I think it's not even immediate that you notice it. It's probably going to be a few days down the road when you haven't really felt those feelings that you're.
You'll feel within about 3 minutes.
Like mentally, I don't believe that you come to the realization that that's what's going on with you until.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I've even, when I do the different markets and fairs, I always give out samples.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people try it to where they didn't even realize they had anxiety. They've been living with anxiety their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't realize it until they tried this and anxiety was gone. I've had so many people just like, wow, I've been living with anxiety. And then when you feel what it's like without it. So this, I want to share. The CBD basically gives you the space in your head to reach for healthier options with everything else that you're doing, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I love when you say that. I love when you say the space in your head, right? Because when we're dealing with trauma and we're dealing with anxiety, our head is full. And until it's clear, you don't realize how full it was. Right. And so when we're full like that, we're reaching for immediate relief, like whatever is going to be that immediate relief. And it's not always the healthiest for us.
Yes. So I'm kind of put on my healer hat here for a minute, like the Reiki energy healer.
Yes.
What happens is when we are in that state, it's a survival state and we're in a contracted state.
Yes.
So our body, our mind, everything, our thought, everything is contracted and disempowered. So for me,
I have a good question. You want to hear this question?
Yes.
Go ahead and it's small. I didn't make it big. Oh, you guys give me a minute. I need to go in here and make it better. There we go. I got to make it better. You see that question?
I do. So
what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm specifically talking CBD, which is different than marijuana. Marijuana has its own place in healing. I can still answer the question about the marijuana leaves. They're not as potent as the flower, but it will work. The flower is much more potent, but the leaves will work. And then just know you're getting the euphoria and the psychoactive effects with the marijuana, the THC. But if you are experiencing chronic pain, then that euphoria can be very helpful. So marijuana definitely has its own place. But with mental health, I usually stick with the CBD because the THC can have unwanted complications when you're healing in that area. That makes sense. I usually stick to the THC for more physical because of the psychoactive effect. There has been links. I don't know. I don't want to get too much of the medical data on it.
No. What I hear you saying is that the of the marijuana helps it basically hinders your ability to actually go through that healing process of the mental health, because you're still whirling, right? There's just something else in your head space.
Yes. So when you haven't healed the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the THC, the head high, is only masking the trauma,
Yes.
and you're not facing it head on and working through that.
Right.
So THC has its place as far as it heightens our senses, and it shows us it's a spiritual term, but it shows us our shadow, or it shows us our insecurities. So when people say, I get paranoid when I smoke pot, that's all of your insecurities rushing forward. So, I mean, the THC has completely different, it brings out different things and have different effects in the mental healing process. And I don't recommend it until you've done the deep trauma healing. Otherwise, it'll mask the trauma. You won't be able to, you have to identify and acknowledge the trauma to be able to heal it. And that has to happen before the THC is used in different ways, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Does that answer the question? I hope so. If not, please
the leaves, yeah, you can definitely boil the leaves. I used to do a double broiler of the flour with butter, and you can actually melt the trichomes. I don't know. I don't want to go too deep, but
I got you.
You can melt it with butter, and then the butter will have the medicine in it, and then you can cook with the butter. So that's what I think she's kind of referring to.
Okay. I'm as I ask this next question or lead into this next area, you said healing deep within. Let's talk about that. Okay. Because I know we talked offline, we talked about how when you do like the CBD and you do the yoga, you're really touching, for some people it's just touching the
surface level.
It's just touching the surface level, right? Whereas and this is where we're going to jump into Reiki here really quickly. It's the surface level, right? For some people, it works. It is what it is. It helps that mental space. It helps the anxiety. It actually deals with the symptoms and products of trauma, as opposed to just masking it, like when you took your antidepressants, right? Yeah. Would you say, okay. But then when you're saying deeper healing, we're talking about like going down to the root of the trauma, right? And I like it to, in this instant, and it's not like this for everybody. So if it applies, let it apply. If it doesn't apply, cool.
Let it apply.
Yeah.
If it doesn't apply, let it apply.
You just, because I don't want to discourage people from doing what they do if it's helpful. But in many cases, for people, CBD is the Band-Aid and Reiki is the surgical removal of the trauma, right? So we're no longer just treating symptoms. We're actually getting to the root cause of the symptoms that we're trying to treat in that aspect, right? So when we start digging into holistic healing, the hope is that we're going to get to the root cause of what would cause you to need CBD to begin with.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I love that we're going there. Okay.
Let's go.
So for me, in my experience, I had physical, sexual, emotional trauma as a child, right? And so for me, I had very deep trauma that I went into my adult life with. I mean, I've seen counselors here and there, but I've never really done the work and processed it. So,
and I'm so glad that you're saying that. Like, some people say, oh, I went through this and I went through it in my childhood, and I really feel like I should actually be past it at this point because I'm 40, 45, 35, 25. This should just be done, right? But you make a excellent point.
Trauma lives at the cellular level of your body. So it is stored in our body. You can't just work through it mentally. It literally has to be mentally, physically. It has to be something worked through and out of our bodies. So for me, the CBD provided the space in my head to start weaning off the pharmaceutical and start reaching for healthy options.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was able to go. I started seeing a therapist. I started doing retreats and sister circles and working with communities of women and healing in groups with other women. I would not have been able to leave my house without going into a panic attack, let alone sit in a group with other women and share our trauma. So CBD kind of gets you to that next step to do the deeper level healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Reiki, so Reiki energy healing is basically, it's a divine, loving, healing energy. And there's literally been studies where they've been able to measure this healing energy. One of the best studies, I think, is where they studied the water. And some people might be familiar with this, but they infused the water with different energy of, oh gosh, there's a music one done. Have you guys seen the one with different types of music? And then they look at the patterns of the way that water freezes. And you can see that if it's pleasant music, like an energetic, music is frequency. So the frequencies formed in these beautiful patterns. The unpleasant frequencies formed in just like disarray. So if you think about your body, we all have an energetic field around our body. And if we're putting in, just like the music makes a difference, right? If we're putting in jumbled, crazy, chaotic energy,
You know what I like to say?
it manifests in our body.
Like to say garbage in, garbage out. I mean, that's just the most direct way to say it.
Thank you. You saved me. I was
garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So what you put in yourself is what you're going to produce when you're trying to go through any process, right? And if you're putting positive things inside of you, when you're going through this process, it's easier to accept those positive things because you're going to actually in turn give more positive energy. Most people jumping on here, no, I'm not even going to say most. Some people may not understand the history of Reiki. It was developed in about 1920 by a Japanese doctor who just wanted a way to help people heal that was connected to no spirituality, right? So it has no connection to anyone's particular religion. And that was the purpose of it, because he was looking for something that would be able to heal the masses. And he knew and respected that not everybody practiced the same way spiritually.
Yeah.
The one thing I love about this doctor is that he not only studied on a spiritual level, he actually studied Western medicine, which makes that even better because he had an understanding of what was truly going on. And he trained people who became Reiki masters. And Reiki came by way of a Japanese American. She brought it back to Hawaii after she was she used the services, found that they worked so well, like
her own self-healing,
like that, for her own self-healing, that she wanted to share it with other people here in the States. So in about 1935, it reached Hawaii. About 1937, it reached the mainland here on the other side of the United States. But that's just the history and background of it. It's just something that is for everyone, right?
And go ahead.
No. It's all you.
So Reiki energy healing, what it looks like is, I'm a Reiki master teacher. My clients come in, it's similar to a massage table. You lay on a massage table. And then the facilitator, basically I'm just bringing in, it's a divine healing energy. And I'm bringing that energy in by just holding my hands over their body. So it's not actually touching, which a lot of people are, concerned, or you're like touching. It's just directing that energy into the body. And then it is an intelligent energy. So it really goes in and it knows if our heart energy is contracted, it helps open and expand through our heart. And our root is unbalanced, then we feel like we're in that survival mode. Then it comes in and can balance that energy. So what the kind of benefits you see from Reiki starts as easy as just relieving anxiety. So it's very relaxing and soothing. But then it also gets as deep as going into trauma healing in the form of inner child work. So I don't know if I'll just touch upon inner child work just a little bit. So each of us had we had moments through our childhood. You're the doctor in this area. Maybe I should let you.
No, go for it. We having a conversation. Nope, go for it. I'm not. Nope.
So when we're children, we have moments that we can't quite understand or process, right? So trauma truly is defined as anything that we can't really process or work through. And most of us think of these big events as trauma, but trauma can be something very simple and small too, but our mind didn't wrap through it. We didn't emotionally process it. So it still sticks in our body as trauma. So it can go as far as working with the moments in time in your childhood where trauma happened, whether it was physical abuse, sexual abuse. A lot of what I see in my female patients were
emotional abuse, sibling abuse. I just really want you guys to know that it's a larger array of things. So don't feel left out. If it's trauma, it fits.
Yes. And yes. So it can literally go back, and we work with that child through, I call it like a sacred imagination. And you like the energy, and then also talking through it, but you can go back almost, it's like you take yourself mentally back in that time and energetically back in that time. And you can heal yourself in that time so that when you come back as your adult self out of this session, that you've been able to work through and process that energy, and you're no longer carrying it in your body. So that's like the deepest level where you can heal major trauma, but it also works for grief. Like if you've lost someone in your life or lost a job even, if just experiencing the stress and chaos from what we're experiencing right now, just come out of this session feeling lighter. So again, I want to go back to like the constricted, the contracted, the disempowering, the heavy, dense feeling. And when the energy comes in and it clears that energy, and it's able to help you expand more, you feel more empowered in your thought, and you literally just, it's one of those like magical things that's hard to put into words, but you feel so different. And it's a little bit different for every single person.
I'm getting ready to say that, you know what? Healing I don't know that it has words, right? Because you become speechless when you begin to think about how different you feel. People are like, oh, how does that feel? And then you're like a deer in headlights, because you're just like, and you can't explain it.
Not always words. Yeah, what we feel.
Because it's personal. It's absolute personal, but just know you'll know it when it happens. There's not going to be a question as to did it happen, because you're going to be absent of some things that were normally there.
Yes. So what happens is after the session, like I said, you feel lighter, you feel less stressed. And then what happens is you usually the next few days, you have these aha moments. As you have that clarity, maybe that you haven't had. And so ideas will come through, or things will hit you and you're like, oh, okay. Because before, with all this swirling, right, then it's hard to really grasp concepts or have the clarity for like the beauty and the, how do I explain this? Like your best life or your highest self, you need to make this space for that to come through, right? So it creates that space energetically to where you're not, it's a feeling thing.
Now, some people might say, okay, I go through this. It's a process, but some people say, okay, how long before I feel it? Like, so how many sessions do I have to go through in order to begin to feel that relief of anxiety and feel that deeper healing?
You're going to feel it about halfway through the session. You're going to feel it while you're in the session.
So number one?
Yeah. When you're in the session, you're going to feel it. So when people wake up, or they'll wake up or come out of a Reiki session, it's literally just like, they feel like it's like you just released a 70-pound backpack from your back, and you're in this state. So it gets your brain waves into a theta state, if that makes sense. So you're literally shifting states in your brain waves, and your whole body is in an extremely relaxed state. And you feel kind of floaty. You feel like you want to go home and take a nap. People get excellent sleep afterwards. You feel it right away.
So you use the term to align. What do you mean by that?
So that would be going into like the vortex energy centers within your body and trying to decide, I'm like, how far do we go into that? Why don't I share this? I'm hosting a Reiki share Tuesday, September 5th. No, where's the calendar? I think it's Tuesday, September 15th. I'm hosting a Reiki share in Temecula wine country, where it's basically I'm going to introduce you to the energy of Reiki, and then you're actually going to be able to feel it yourself, and then even work with some self-healing with the Reiki. So if it's for anxiety, you're able to help bring the energy into your head. If you have sore parts, so you'll be able to feel and experience Reiki energy in the Reiki share Tuesday, September 15th. It's hard to go into the line. I mean, we have a whole complex energy system within our body. And when energy systems are in alignment, you tell me, Nicole, do you want me to explain what a chakra energy center is?
Most people should know, but go for it.
Okay. So we have chakra energy centers in our body. And for example, there's one in our heart. Chakra just means wheel. And we have a wheel of energy that's supposed to spin, not too fast, not too slow, just a nice steady wheel of energy. And if you think of energy as like a vibration or a frequency, then it should just be humming along, nice and in alignment, right? What happens is, in this heart center, if maybe I get cut off in traffic, or maybe I get a text message from my mother-in-law, things like that, right?
It just starts speeding up.
Those things will affect the energy. Grieving. So if I'm grieving, it might be really slow and sluggish, right? I have a hard time feeling love and compassion. And I might even physically start to close up as my energy closes. I might physically start closing up. And you'll see the rounding of the shoulders, they're protecting their heart, right? So that's when you're off in your heart. Now, when it can be too slow, the energy can be too fast, and excessive energy also. Each one of these centers in our body, the energy can be blocked, which means we have no access to love or heart, which means we're like judgmental. We're self-critical, self-judgmental. We're judging others. We're critical of others. That's a blockage in the heart or an imbalance in your heart energy. So that's why we want it in balance, because then emotionally we're emotionally and physically and spiritually at our highest and best functioning when we're in alignment. So everyday life throws this energy out of balance, and we ourselves or a Reiki practitioner can come in and help balance and align that energy. For us, something as simple as we do is just hold your hands to your heart and just focus your intention on basically expanding that energy. If you feel like you're closed off or you're grieving or upset or anger, literally hands over your heart.
I love how you describe the body posture, because that is true. When we're feeling grief and sadness, the first thing we do is kind of slump over and hold our heads down, right? And that's amazing to know that that's just innately how we are, energy wise, to protect ourselves. And so what I hear you saying is that alignment means just getting all of those things back at that steady pace of spinning.
Yeah.
And unblocking some things, clearing us out, clearing more space so that we can actually begin to deal with the things that have caused us our trauma.
Yeah. Can I use, like, this is a perfect scenario. Before I started having the awareness of this energy, I was very irritable and self-critical and critical of others. And just for example, getting ready for school, my kids, whatever, right? And it's like, all right, let's get this done, blah, 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 go to school. It's like someone cuts you off and you're like, oh, great, thanks. And then that little thing could like spiral into something else. And it's just like, then you go back to your day, just kind of irritable, just left, right? Mm-hmm. So the difference for me was when I started connecting to this space and working on aligning that energy, I would do that in the morning, like with my tea or whatever, and then I'd get my kids ready. Well, what I noticed is I had a little more space in my heart for my own kids, and I took a little more joy even getting them ready.
Yes.
And then when I take them to school, someone cuts me off. I'm like, oh, they're probably having a bad day. Like it just rolls off of you.
Yeah.
And then I never really get that momentum or spiral of irritation because my heart's open. I'm not judging myself. I'm not judging others. If someone wrongs me, it just more slides off, right? We see people like this. Yes. I would see people like this all the time. And I'm like, how do they do it? How do they do it? Because I'd be so irritable and so frustrated and just like, and that is because they have a center and they're aligning that energy. Mm-hmm. And our energy centers, they affect us physically and emotionally. So the throat chakra is a really good example, especially for women. Mm-hmm. Most of us grow up conditioned and taught not to speak up, not to rock the boat, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you even grow up in a household that said children are to be heard and not seen.
Or seen maybe, and not heard, yes. Mm-hmm.
Seen and not heard. Or maybe you have a father or a spouse or a partner that's basically discourages you from speaking up and speaking your truth, right? Something like that will close down your throat chakra energy. Now, if that persists over time and you don't do anything to heal and open that energy back up, what happens is you start to manifest physical disease. If the energy is left untreated for decades, that's where you start to see the physical disease manifest. So that's why you see a lot of women with thyroid issues, right? I think it's like 83% more women get thyroid disease than men. It's because we are socially conditioned more than men not to speak up. So that's a beautiful example of how the emotional energy can manifest as physical disease energy.
Right. No, you're good. Yes,
I want to start going in an emotional coding here.
Listen,
can I just say a word on emotional coding? There's books, there's doctors. A dear friend of mine is a psychotherapist who does emotional coding. So she's a therapist, and you can go to her and say, I have physical pain in my lower back, or I'm having problems with my stomach. And she can tell you emotionally, help you and work through emotionally what's causing that physical pain.
Yeah, like stress is usually in the stomach. So that's why people are going to get ulcers and different things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty nuanced where you can start getting into like the different nuances between, it could also be like your drive, your self-worth, a lot of different emotional type things.
Right.
But it's really interesting. Every single body part is emotionally tied. It's all interconnected, emotional, physical, health, and wellness.
Because that's who we are. We are human beings, and our bodies are energy and emotions, and those things do get out of alignment, especially when you've had some experience of trauma. And if we never, ever, address it, then we go through the rest of our lives believing that something's wrong with us. which is not a true statement, people. It's not.
Yeah.
All right, Miss Cheri, thank you so much. I am going to pop your information up here once again. This is where you can reach Miss Cheri, the CBD yoga teacher, if you want to ask her some more questions, if you just want to connect with her to, learn more about how you can get involved with a Reiki healing or learn more about CBD yoga, she definitely can be reached here at the CBD Yoga Teacher at gmail.com. Also, if you are interested in seeing what she has to offer in regards to CBD, then you're going to go to the cbdyogateacher.com, because that is where you're going to find all of this amazing information. I want to say thank you very much for everyone who has tuned in this evening. I hope that the things that were provided for you today is something that you can place into your healing box and utilize it when you need it. So just remember that resilience is a journey to healing, and we will catch up with you guys on the next episode of Mental Health and Healing, which is going to be on September 8th. And we are going to talk about financial literacy and trauma. Yes, so you don't want to miss that conversation. We're going to talk about how finances are tied to trauma and how over the generations it becomes behavior in regards to money management, and how we're going to try and fix that and help you put some tools in your toolbox to break that cycle. All right. So again, you guys have a beautiful evening, and thank you for tuning in. Bye bye now.